Hey everyone, this is my fourth video in this series of all the systems are broken. And I know I've talked about layering, building layers into your preparedness and building layers into your life. I've talked a little bit about acquiring knowledge and skills and being purposeful and all that. Today I just want to talk about preparing for uncertainty. And definitely that can include, the big ones, SHTF. It definitely, it can include the grid going down, EMP. Guys, again, don't base your preparedness around EMP and then a total collapse of the grid, right? So don't start there, definitely. That's one of the things that we always think about. That's one of the things that's the big one. But anyway, I don't want to go all into that. So let me back up. Preparing for uncertainty. Focus first on the things that are so close to you that they can cause a disruption in your life. So let me give you, this is an example that happened actually this morning, actually yesterday and then this morning. So the software that I run for my school district, it's a place where everybody can go and they can get their grades and they can get data and curriculum and all that kind of stuff. Well, over this weekend, yesterday, I received an email from one of the teachers that the system was down. So of course I get in there and I check it out, and it was down. We had a big power outage. Yesterday we had a big storm come through, and yesterday we were without power in my home, and I'm not too far away from the district office, so I figured that's probably what it was. The server was down and all that kind of stuff. So this teacher was very concerned because her grades were due early this morning, and if she was planning on this day to do it, right? And so, she was having a panic attack because she was not going to be prepared, and people were going to, her administrators were going to be on her like, hey, where are your grades? Because we need to make sure we input, you input all these grades into your grade book. And then so it came up later on Sunday evening, and then it was down again this morning. So I was going back and forth with our technicians and stuff, and they restarted the server, and things are great. But it's one of those things where you prepare, right? And maybe you thought, hey, this is going to be all right. I always have this available to me, but then it's kind of taken away from you. And it's a great metaphor when we talk about preparedness, because we always think there's going to be things in place, and so we don't worry about needing to prepare. And then when they're gone, it's like we find ourselves rushing and kind of in a freak out because we are not prepared. We don't have anything in place. So one of the things, the things to think about is play chess, right? And I'm not talking about literally play chess, but if you've ever played chess, you know that, and it's a good thing to do, to help increase your brain functions and to, your critical thinking skills. You can download it on your phone, whatever. But the thing about playing chess is you're trying to think moves in advance. You're not just being reactive to the person that is playing against you, or the computer or whatever you're playing. That's part of it. But you're also thinking moves in advance so that you can lock down their king, right? And so that's one of the things for preparedness, if we can think about things that way. So for instance, what about the things that can really affect you and disrupt your life? Let's say like your job. Now, if you're in an industry where it's going to be secure no matter what, then you're good. Maybe you don't need to think so hard about that, but maybe you are in a situation. Recently I talked about, and this was a while back, but I remember talking about it recently on the podcast. I was getting a haircut, and there was two guys that worked for the oil industry, and Texas had been pretty good. Oil was doing well, but then oil started dropping off, and I know it's ramped back up again. But these two guys, one of the guys was out of work for a year, and another guy had just gone back, and they were willing to do anything at this point in oil, whether it was going out and working in the fields or going out to the rigs, in the Gulf or whatever it was, because they were needing a job. So if you're in an industry that it could go down. And the thing about oil, man, it was going and going and blasting. There's whole cities in Texas that have built up around oil. And so that whole city is based on oil production and oil being in a certain amount of money. And so if oil starts to drop, that whole city, everybody who, stores have popped up, schools have popped up, all these, businesses have popped up because people are there because of oil. So if oil starts to tank, it affects a whole lot of people. And that's what I'm talking about when we talk about prepare for uncertainty. So in your finances, are you preparing for a possible job loss, or are you preparing for maybe your boss coming to you and say, hey, we got to cut across the board? If you're living paycheck to paycheck and they cut across the board, I mean, you want that job, you need that job. And I know right now it's hard to find jobs, although, the job reports are high and all that kind of stuff. That's a joke, man. There are people out there that I know of that cannot find a job making a living wage. There's people that I know out there that can't find a job making any kind of wage right now. Even fast food and stuff like that, a lot of those jobs are taken. There's people that are working 2 and 3 jobs just to kind of make it. And so, that's one of those things where we prepare for uncertainty. Can you weather that storm? What would you do? Again, you're thinking 2-3 moves in advance. What would you do in that situation? So maybe your health, right? Where's your health at? Are you getting older? Or do you need to take care of your health? When you're young, man, everything, you can weather anything. You can get through anything. You can, get into a wreck. Somebody, hits you or whatever, and then you bounce back, or you take a fall, you bounce back. But as you get older, you take a fall, and man, it takes you weeks to bounce back. Somebody in my church just recently, was in a car wreck, and it's taken a long time. They're a little bit older. It's taken a long time to bounce back from, the bumps and the bruises and all those things that they experienced in this car accident, right? So is your health, where's your health? Your teeth, I recently talked about that on the podcast with Rich from SHTF and Go. We talked about our teeth, and we don't always know how to take care of that, right? Or maybe, I'm sorry, it wasn't Rich. It was on another podcast. I was being interviewed by somebody else, is what it was. And we talked about that and how we need to prepare for that. Like, if you just take it for granted that the dentist is always going to be there and there's some kind of disruption, then, what are you going to do? And modern day dentistry works on your teeth and they try to save teeth. But back in the day, man, they would just pull it. It's like, hey, you got an infection here, or this tooth is bad. We're just going to yank this tooth out. And I mean, that's just the way it is. And if it goes to that, it goes to that. But can you take a little bit of time? And I know that this is like, man, you got to put a little bit of effort into this. You got to put a little bit of effort into thinking about preparedness and thinking moves ahead and thinking about what you would do. So, man, I recommend, if you have a spouse that is a little bit preparedness minded or self-reliant minded, maybe even they're not, you don't even have to come from the preparedness point of view, but you can just come from, hey, what do you think we would do if we did this, right? If this happened, how would we respond? What would you think? Can we put some things in place? I'm looking at this thing that's going on right now, right? Things in Nebraska where farmers, they might be going bankrupt because they've lost all their seed, the farming, the land is just because of the rains and the snow and everything that they experienced up there is just devastated up there. And so they might be going under. So you can look at things like that and just say, I know we're not farmers, but these people have experienced a catastrophic event in their lives. What would we do if things happen like this? And people don't like to think about things like that, but the reason you do that is so that you don't have to fear. When you don't get sidelined, man. When things happen, you don't just get hit from the side and it's like you're in a daze and you freak out. You at least have a frame of mind to be able to say, you know what, we talked about this, or we have some things in place, or we can weather this because we have already walked through what we would do. And the plans need to be adjusted and all those things. But there is that thing where you need to take a little bit of time to think about, what would happen if this happened? What would happen if this happened? And put some ideas into place, put some things into place. That's why we prepare. That's why we plan. That's why we prepare for uncertainty. So anyway, I hope that's been another reminder to think about preparedness and how things can go sideways just very quickly. You could possibly, and I know I was about to end it here, and I'm gonna keep going. You could be going to work and you blow your engine, and you might not have the funds to repair that engine. You might not have the money to go into a dealership, or you don't want to go into a dealership and put down money or take out a big loan on a car. And so what would you do in that situation? What would you do if you lost your transmission? And that's why you have a savings account. That's why you have an emergency fund, so you're able to handle things like that. And so it could be something as simple as that causes a disruption in your life. So can you prepare for disruptions that happen? All right, so let me end it there, because I really don't want these things to get too long, and I'm almost at work. And so I'll go ahead and end it there. Hey guys, if you haven't been over to Prepper website in a long time, I have a link in the description. You can go check that out. Prepper website, we link to 8 to 12 articles every single day, the greatest, the best articles out there in preparedness. We also have a lot of pages that deal with specific things like alternative news, firearms, even conspiracy theories, if that's something that you are interested in. If you haven't checked out the Prepper website podcast, I have a link there as well. And come check out the podcast, man. From time to time, I'm interviewing people, but I'm also just relaying those great articles that I have on Prepper website. And so that's always a good thing. Anyway, guys, that's it for tomorrow. I think I have one more in this series in me, and we'll end it at that point. Thanks again. God bless.